And starting with one of Ukraine's most prominent businessmen, whose company is responsible for much of the infrastructure for its grain exports, has been killed in a Russian missile strike. An advisor to President Zelensky said he believed Alexei Vadatorsky was deliberately targeted when his home was hit in the southern city of Mykolaiv.
The city, which lies on the main route to the Black Sea port of Odesa, and Mykolaiv's been bombarded frequently by Russia, but Saturday night strikes were sustained and intense. Our correspondent Andrew Harding saw it happen.
The end of a punishing night in Mykolaiv. The heaviest bombardment yet for this key frontline city. A few missiles appeared to be hitting deliberate targets, but mostly this was the usual random Russian blitz. Cluster bombs and cruise missiles in residential neighborhoods. Mykolaiv's hospitals filling up, the city's defenders standing firm.
I think everybody gets used to the war. We are sad about our victims and injured people, but we are full of will to win and to fight further.
And that fight is escalating. Ukraine has begun attacking these strategic bridges to trap Russian forces and pave the way for a counter-offensive towards the Crimean Peninsula. But for now, many civilians in Mykolaiv are still staying put, queuing stoically for drinking water and somehow living with unbearable risk. How do you get used to this? As shocking as these scenes are, the fact is they've become essentially a daily routine here in Mykolaiv. And every night, thousands of people go to sleep wondering whether, this time, the rockets, the missiles, the cluster bombs will hit their building. Last night, 2 rockets landed outside the Yakovenko's apartment. An air raid siren saved their lives, prodding them to move away from the windows. But Olga is struggling. How can we survive this, she wonders. We can't afford to move somewhere safer. Instead, they patch things up and brace themselves for another unpredictable night. Andrew Harding, BBC News in Mykolaiv.
Now, the first ship carrying Ukrainian grain has left the southern port city of Odesa this morning under a landmark deal with Russia.
Yes, it was loaded with 26,000 tonnes of corn. It will sail to Lebanon as part of a plan aimed at easing a global food crisis.
Well, our Ukraine correspondent James Waterhouse is in Odesa this morning. In fact, on the water. James, how significant is this moment?
It's hugely significant. It's a small start, but it's vitally important, as you say, not just to Ukraine and its damaged economy, but to some of the poorest countries in the world, which are some of grain's biggest grain customers. I don't know whether you can see the Glazoni heading out with 26,000 tonnes of corn, as you say. You might be able to see the stowed white cranes on top of its lengthy blue hull. And it's following a tugboat along a route which is surrounded by mines. We have seen mines, we've seen demining along this path throughout this week. We've known there's been preparations. We've seen the dust of grain coming out of vessels as they've been loaded. We've seen a heightened military presence. We're not able to film the port because they're very wary of the Russians using that footage for potential airstrikes. But this is a big moment because it's the first time these vessels and the crews on board have been able to leave Ukraine since the 24th of February when this war broke out. Are people getting carried away? No, because trust is as ever rock bottom. The deal was signed last Friday, but this war has remained as active as ever. And this is, pun intended, a drop in the ocean if you compare it to the 5 million tonnes of grain Ukraine was exporting every month before this conflict. So there's a long way to go. It's hoped this deal will last for 4 months, but there are a lot of ifs and buts. But still, a welcome sight.
Yes, absolutely.